Hey guys, my name is Olivia and I am a fashion and portrait photographer now based in the Chicago area. So today I wanted to discuss with you all one of my favorite test shoots that I did a little over a year ago now, which is crazy to me because I feel like it was just maybe 2-3 months ago. But hey, that's how the cookie crumbles. So I reached out to my trusted creative community to help me execute this vision perfectly because I've had this vision in my head for this shoot concept for a long time. And so I was excited to put something together. And I even partnered with my best friend's jewelry brand called Suzi Soma to kind of encapsulate the whole vision and make it more of a jewelry fashion test shoot, but more of a fine art painterly scope. So I sent them over the mood board and they looked at it, they reviewed it, and they made some tweaks that they thought would be best for the vision, and we all came together and made it happen. So for the set, I knew I wanted a solid color, but with some depth to it. So different saturations of one color was kind of my idea, more of that abstract kind of backdrop, almost canvas-like, but not too much so. So I went to my favorite fabric store in my community and I sourced this beautiful green fabric. And I believe I got like 3 to 4 yards. So it might sound like a lot, but it's really not when it comes to a set, because that amount of yard would just probably keep you more in a portrait style, which is ultimately what we were doing. So I knew that I didn't need any more than that. But the thing you have to kind of be wary about with fabrics, a lot of the fabrics that you see at the fabric store, you definitely need to either double layer it or either add like a black backdrop on your backdrop stand and then add your fabric, something so that when your strobe lights fires, it doesn't become see-through and you can see what's behind the fabric. I had enough to double it, and so the light didn't go through. So here's where the setbacks and improvisation started. So we got to the shoot, everybody on the team, and we were waiting for our model to show up, and she didn't show up. Ultimately, we found out what happened later in the evening, but at this point, we needed to get this rolling because we already had everybody here, we had everything set up. So our makeup artist, Aaliyah, decided to step in and be our model / makeup artist for the shoot. So I'm so thankful for her for being able to be our model and the makeup artist for herself. So that was amazing to kind of see her working that way. And honestly, I have zero regrets about that happening because I'm absolutely in love with the outcome. So just to kind of break down the creative process, the makeup artist / model, she did this beautiful rosy cheek ordeal to kind of mimic more of that historical kind of older school makeup. I'm not sure of the right terminology. Just more like rosy cheeks, and then she did like a pouty lip just to kind of mimic that older makeup look. And then we wanted her hair slicked back, just because we were going to say this is a jewelry fashion test shoot, so we needed to make sure that the necklace from Suzi Soma was really being captured. So like I stated before, because I knew this is going to be a portrait shoot with minimal movement, I definitely knew that this was going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of find versatility in the shots because we're not doing extra bits and movement. We're more so very small movements, very small movements, and just capturing the essence of each minimal movement is literally all I wanted. And so that can become a little bit difficult sometimes for a lot of people because trying to find the magic in different elements, different movements without being extra. A lot of times more editorial, like fashion shoots, is very big and bold and hair there everywhere, but this is just more so posing and just hit the pose, take the shot, get the essence of everything. And another detail about the set, I utilized the basket that I had laying around and I just flipped it on its head and I put this beautiful curtain fabric. That's fun fact, actually, I got that fabric from my parents and that was their curtains in their dining room, I believe, or their room or their bedroom. I can't remember. I believe it was their dining room from when I was a kid. So it's just fun to kind of put old and the new in the set design, and even with the flowers in the vase. That was one of my flowers laying around in my home and it dried up. So I was like, okay, this is old. The backdrop is new. The fabric is old, and then the vase is also old because I thrifted it. So such an easy, clean, minimalist setup. So for the technical part of the shoot, I decided to play around with my lights. I kind of had an idea of the direction I wanted to go with my light setup, but I decided to just let the model sit in there first, and then I kind of see what works for what I imagined. As you can see in these 3 different shots, I had 3 different setups going on. I believe 3. So for my first strobe, I decided to put it to the left of the model and facing straight up towards the ceiling with a white umbrella attached to it, just to kind of soften the light a little bit, not too harsh, but nothing too impactful where it's softening up the light so much, because ultimately the light needs to be bouncing around and I don't want to lose so much of that power with a stronger modifier. So with that being said, I like that it was able to just bounce around my whole studio space, which is just my living room area. And so I have white walls and white ceilings, so that allowed for the light to just go everywhere. And this ultimately was my fill light. And I wanted the light to be higher than her, ultimately because I wanted it to mimic sort of like a north-facing window that is usually known in more historical painterly portraits back in the days. And so I just elevated it a little bit higher so it looks like she's looking up to the window. That's ultimately why I put that light there, to fill in the shadows and create that mood. My main light that I used to illuminate the face and the jewelry and the main parts of the shoot, I utilized another strobe with my favorite 65-inch Octabox with a diffuser on it and a grid, just to kind of control the lighting with the grid and then soften it a little bit with the diffuser. And I did a cross lighting technique where the light isn't exactly facing her, it's more so like this. So if this was the light, this would be, instead of facing me like a typical like setup, I put it like this. So the light will go across her and not on her. So it's a more indirect lighting. And so that really helped with not having any harshness, and also helped with kind of creating more of that moodier scene, because the light will just start to fade across the scene. Not too aggressively. So that's why I utilized a white reflector, and I had my colleague hold it up next to her so the light can just bounce back a little bit to fill in the shadows even more. Settings, I did do iOS 125 with f-stop of 6. I did an f-stop of 6. I usually shoot around 8 or 9 because that's my usual style, which is sharp images, but I really wanted to play more with the softer effects. So I didn't want the background to be too in focus, but I didn't want it to be too blurred out. So 6 was kind of like my middle ground. I also did 1/125, and then my focal range was around like 24 millimeters to about 40 millimeters. And that the beautiful thing is I had my favorite zoom lens on it to kind of help capture different focal length. And the zoom lens that I chose for this shoot is my favorite lens of all time, which is my 24-105 f4 Canon lens. So definitely take all those values with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, everybody's setup is going to be different. You might have a different color subject. You might have a smaller or bigger studio, different gear, different lighting equipment produces different lighting strengths. This is just more of a baseline. So for post-production, I did very minimal touches to it. I increased the exposure a little bit, and the highlights and the shadows, just to kind of lift everything up, just for my personal taste on editing. The beautiful thing about post-processing, and honestly the whole process, but definitely post-processing, you can really kind of choose what direction you want to go into. I decreased the texture in the image in Lightroom, and I also put a little bit of haze on it, like very minimal haze on it, just to kind of make more of that painterly, dreamy-ish lighting, not too dreamy, because it's definitely more of a moodier scene. I did a little bit of color correction to the images, and that was ultimately really it. Of course, there's some retouching, touch up the skin a little bit, but that was pretty much it. So overall, have fun. Have fun on these test shoots that you do as a beginner photographer. And honestly, not even as a beginner photographer, a photographer in general. There's always something to be learned. And so the best way to try new gear, try new techniques, is to do test shoots. So I highly recommend doing test shoots, not just to try techniques, but to also add the shoots that you desire to your portfolio, so you can have a well-rounded portfolio that makes sense to the work that you're trying to find for future clients. I absolutely loved how everything came out, and sometimes, you know, things come along in the process that you didn't expect, like for me, the model not showing up, but you just have to remember to bounce back, remember why we're here, and improvise. If you would like to see innovative ways to reach out to creatives in your area, and so you can do these test shoots and you can create that dream portfolio of yours, don't forget to click this video right here, because it will give you all the innovative ways that I found for myself that I realized was helpful to get to the next level of my career. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.